Garden mode activated. All right. Welcome to the garden. I'm Zach with Love App. We're going to plant a tomato. This one planted right here. It's doing quite well. It's been here for about a week now. This was a tomato also in a gallon pot like this one. So what I like to do is take my small starters, put them into a nice gallon pot for a couple of weeks to get them established. When they're in that small container you get from the nursery or sow them yourself, they really start to run out of nutrients pretty quickly in that container. So as soon as you get them home, you can pot them up into a gallon pot, keep them happy for another couple weeks. In this gallon pot, you can bring them outside during the day and inside at night until the nighttime temperatures warm up. We're really looking for nighttime temperatures at about 50 degrees before you don't really need to worry about these tomatoes outside. You can plant them earlier, especially if you have a shorter growing season, but you need to do a little bit of extra effort in order to keep them happy and healthy in that early season. Using a post hole digger for this, but if you've just got a shovel, that works as well. This just makes a really nice clean hole. Pretty deep for a couple reasons. One is I really like to bury the tomato plants as much as I can when I'm planting them. The more you bury the stem, the more roots you're going to get. So anytime you transfer your tomato into a new container, whether that being potting it up after sowing, potting it into one of these pots, or planting it in the ground or a final container, you're going to want to bury it every time. That's going to establish a stronger root structure. Because on tomatoes, they all have these little hairs on the stems right here. These hairs on the stems is a plant tissue that's sort of like a stem cell, and that will react to whatever environment it's around. So when those little hairs get buried underground, they'll become roots underground. So since I'm going to bury a lot of this plant, I'm just going to go ahead and trim up the lower leaves here and remove them. This is a bit of debate among gardeners. And if you ask 100 different gardeners how to plant a tomato, you're going to get 100 different answers. But this is how we do it. This is how we've been doing it for 30 years and get really good success with this method. This particular plant looks like it already has another competing meristem here. These main growing branches are called meristems. This one's got 2. That's fine. We're just going to go ahead and plant this one. There's a lot of information out there about pruning suckers and when to prune them, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in another video. But for the purposes of this, all of these main stems will become fruiting, flowering branches. You see we've got some flowers on here already. Since we want this plant to be focusing on its root production right now, not its fruit production, we're just going to go ahead and clip off these flower spikes, because we don't want this plant to be thinking about fruiting right now. The reason it's starting to send off these flower spikes is because this plant doesn't know that this is not its final container. So it's pretty much filled up this container with its roots, and now it's going, hey, I need to reproduce. I need to pass on my genetic material. That's the life purpose of this plant. So it thinks this is all the space I'm going to get. I better start trying to reproduce now. But we don't want it doing that because we want it to focus on growing. So I'm just going to stick my tag right here. It's just important to be consistent where you put your tags relative to where you plant your different varieties so that you know what's where. And I'm going to go ahead and add a tomato bomb to the bottom of this planting hole. This tomato bomb right here has got 4 of our main ingredients. It's got worm castings, bone meal, all-purpose fertilizer, and alfalfa meal, about 1/2 cup of each. I'd use all of this fertilizer for 1 tomato plant. These are hungry plants. These plants can get huge, easily 10 feet tall plus. And the way we plant our tomatoes, we're going to expect to get 50 to 100 pounds of fruit off of each plant. It's going to need a lot of fertility to do that. So I've just dumped that into the bottom of the planting hole here. We're going to backfill with a little bit of this soil and mix it up. Okay, another really great thing we like to add when we're planting tomatoes is mycorrhizal fungal inoculant. So mycorrhizal fungi are an organism that forms a symbiotic relationship with the plant. Basically, the fungus underground is really good at breaking down nutrients and transporting them to the plant. It also does a whole lot of other great stuff. And I could talk a whole video about mycorrhizal fungi, but we're not going to get into it right now. This is going to help support the plant, taking up more nutrients, retaining more water in the soil, doing all kinds of great stuff. So we're going to just pop this plant out of this container right here. I'm not going to mess with the roots. A lot of people like breaking up the roots. I don't think it's necessary. We're just going to put about a third of this package, about a third cup of mycorrhizae all over the root ball. And you'll see I'm kind of trying to do this over my hole here, so any of the excess stuff falls into the planting hole. And we'll pop this in. Great. And then dump some of this on the top of this root ball as well. I'm going to give it one gentle press here, and that's it. So something I like to avoid when I'm planting tomatoes is having any of the leaves in contact with the soil. The leaves are kind of a vector for pathogens and diseases, bacteria, all kinds of things to get into and onto your plant. So any of these leaves that are touching the soil, I'm just going to trim them off. Trim them back, cut them back a little bit so that we're all clear from the soil here. A tomato cage, small tomato cage on this plant right here. And these peas are temporary, so they're going to get removed here in a little while. So I'm not going to worry about them too much. But we're going to put this tomato cage on this plant. And I'm just going to try to coax these leaves through to not damage them. Now this we call a starter cage. This will get us through a few weeks. And then we're going to put a larger cage over the whole thing, over that other cage in there. So it looks like these guys here, where they've already got this, they've got the small cage on here already, and then the big cage goes over them. The small cage provides support when the plant is still young and kind of centers the plant within the larger cage. So we like to use two cage system for the already planted and you didn't do a whole lot of amending. There's still time. You can add more fertility to the plant, which is just so important. I think one of the number one mistakes for beginner gardeners is not fertilizing their plants enough, especially tomatoes. Everyone wants to grow a productive tomato garden, but the vast majority of people, especially when you're just starting out, do not fertilize enough. So if you've already planted and you're going, shoot, I didn't put one of those tomato bombs in there, or shoot, I didn't put enough fertility in there, we can help the plant along by just digging a bit of a trench around. And how far away you're going to dig your trench is going to depend on how big your plant is. Since this one only got planted here about a week ago, I don't need to dig my trench too far out. If this was a much more established plant like those ones over there we saw on the large cages, I'm going to dig my trench a little bit farther. Trench all cleared out here. About 6 inches is great. Then we're just going to add our fertility all into this trench here and then backfill. The roots of this plant will go and seek out that fertility as it grows. The last step is to just water these in. We'll water them in pretty well with the hose on first transplant day. That'll be about a minute per plant that you're doing, and then you'll come back to that a couple of times throughout the day to just make sure that it's nice and well saturated. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.